Hi guys, and welcome back to the Memily Knits channel. My name is Emily. I am a knitter and crocheter in my mid-30s, based in the north of Nottinghamshire in the UK, where I live with my husband and our two dogs close to Sherwood Forest. I thought we would do a little bit of a different video today, which is to talk about my favourite knitting and crochet YouTube channels. But before we get properly into it, where can you find me? So you can find me on email, Ravelry, Instagram and email, all of which will be down in the description box below. And please feel free to reach out on any of those channels if you would like to. So yeah, today I thought we would talk about my favourite knitting and crochet YouTubers. I did a video like this time last year, and I thought, I've been thinking for a little while it would be interesting to do an update of that, because I'm aware even in myself that not my viewing tastes have changed. I don't think they really have, but the accounts that I watch have changed, and they're changed. And what I was mostly aware of was that there's a couple that I've discovered that I absolutely love that I wasn't aware of last year when I made the video. So I thought it would be interesting to highlight them. What I wasn't expecting, I knew, say, that I'd stopped watching some of the accounts that I'd mentioned before. I just wasn't as interested in them anymore. But I didn't really expect quite how many of them that I no longer watched. When I realised that, when I went to look at the show notes from my last episode and realised quite how many of them have changed, I thought it was, I was even more excited to do this. And I think it might actually be interesting to do this on like an annual basis, because there's so many new podcasts come on, so many other people. There's a few I'm going to mention on here that I don't really watch anymore, but it's not because I don't like them, it's because they don't really make content anymore. So it changes. The landscape of YouTube changes all the time. So I think it's interesting to do an update, and there's some channels on here that I absolutely adore that I really want to highlight with you guys. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it. So I can't remember if I don't think I said at the beginning I'm going to be doing this as a bit of a knitting chat. You may have already heard the needles clicking. So I have some knitting to work on. This is my Olympic cami by Maya Daglon of Tinks. This is it was a test knit. I didn't finish it by the deadline. It's out now, and I would really highly recommend it. I am not very far off finishing this. I only need to add a couple of inches, so hopefully I can get close to ready to bind off today. I'm knitting this in Rika Essentials Cotton DK. But yeah, I'm going to be, if I'm looking down a bit, I'm either looking at my knitting or I've got my laptop open next to me. I think I'm actually going to pop it on my knee, so that I can see my notes and I can see who I'm going to talk about and everything like that. So if I'm looking down, that's what it is. But yeah, grab a drink, grab some knitting, and let's chat. I think it's important to mention a couple of things up front before we properly get into it. So first off, a little bit of a disclaimer. It's not really a disclaimer, is it? One of the things that I think is fab about YouTube is that there is so much different content on there, and that means that there's something for everybody on YouTube. And that being said, these are my opinions, so that whether I like or don't like a channel, or there's nobody on here really that I don't like, but if I'm mentioning somebody that I no longer watch that you love, that's not, it's my opinion. It's not a reflection on how you should feel about them. And if I'm mentioning somebody that I love that you don't like, that's fine too. So yeah, it is all subjective, isn't it? So it's my opinions, and I hope you find some people here that you really love. But if I'm saying that I no longer watch somebody that you absolutely adore, that doesn't need to be any issue at all. And it's not to mean that I don't like these people, like I say. So we'll talk about the reasons I don't watch most of the people anymore, because there's nothing really that deep, but it might make sense. And I think it's also worth touching on what I look for in a YouTube channel. So I mentioned last time, but if you've not seen that video, I look for people who consider size inclusivity, because whilst I have lost a bit of weight over the last year, and I'm not going to go into detail about that, I'll talk about that, my size has changed a little bit, and it's easier for me to find sizes that suit me in any pattern. I don't want to have a platform where I talk about things that aren't properly size inclusive, so that's important to me that I consume content like that as well. But the things I look for mostly are, it's personality, isn't it? I tend to be drawn to channels that are, for the most part, European or British, and I think that's just sense of humour maybe, but they're not all. They're certainly not all. There are a couple of, there's a Canadian channel and a couple of, I believe, both American channels on here as well. So there are, that is not exclusive. I'm just looking at my list. Yeah, there are a couple of I think one Canadian and a couple of American channels.
But I just tend to prefer that, partly because I can access the yarn that they're talking about a bit easier. I've fallen foul. I've had the problem before where I see a podcaster talking about a yarn. I'm like, oh my God, I love that. I really want to we really want to work with it. And then I look it up and it's like, oh, it's only in America. It would cost a small fortune to get it shipped over here. So that's honestly an entirely selfish way to look at it, I guess. But yeah, I want to be able to kind of, if I really like something, I'd like to be able to try it. But yeah, it isn't specific to that. And I do very much find that I tend to be drawn to, I guess, similar content to what I put out. People that just feel sort of, it's maybe a little bit more casual. It's less highly edited and highly polished. For the most part, that is the case with everybody that I'm listing on here. It is more sort of casual talk to camera, speaking to your friend kind of content, rather than really highly overly edited or cinematic or anything like that. And that might not be the kind of things that you look for. And again, that's absolutely fine if not, but the recommendations I'm going to give you may not be those kind of things. And I think if you know these channels that I'm going to talk about, I think that's probably reflected very much in the content that I'm going to talk about, and I think also how my content is as well. Obviously, you know, you tend to, especially when you're a newer YouTuber, like I was when I made this video last year. I've been doing it for sort of 18 months now, so I'm certainly not an expert, but I feel like I've found my own kind of voice a little bit more. Whereas when I was a newer YouTuber, you tend to sort of, you almost emulate content that you like, don't you? When we've all been consuming YouTube for a very long time. So I like this, I want to do it like this. So it kind of shows that, you know, the way that I put my own content out is probably kind of the content that I seek as well. All that being said, if you like these people, if you like my content, you're probably going to like these channels as well, I think, for the most part. So yeah, we'll get into it. I thought it'd be interesting to touch on at the beginning, like I say, the channels that I don't. I was really subscribed. I was really surprised to see the number of channels that I just don't really watch anymore. And I haven't unsubscribed from any of them. I just don't engage with them very much anymore. They're just not what's interesting to me at the moment. And again, that's absolutely fine. So of the original list that I talked about last year, and I will link it down in the description box, last year's video if you wanted to go and watch it. I only actually still watch 5 of those channels that I mentioned last year, and they're not in the same kind of order that I talked about last year. So I've got a similar kind of setup this year. I've got a list of channels that I sort of dip into and out of. I don't watch everything they put out, but I either watch them for a specific reason, like they might do fantastic tutorials or something like that, or there might be a particular type of content from them that I love. Or I just, you know, sort of, if I'm looking for some content to watch, they're going to be somebody that I'm going to go and see if they've got a new video out. And then the others are basically, there's a list of, I'd originally said top 5, but it's actually 6. I couldn't narrow it down to 5 of people that last time I think I called them my ride or die, people that they put a video out and I'm going to go and watch it. If I can't watch it there and then, it goes on my watch later and I watch it as soon as I possibly can. And there are some, I think there are 2 in that are the same as they were last time, and they've changed a bit. So we'll talk about that. But I was going to touch on some of the ones that I mentioned last time that I just don't really watch and why. And they probably all really come into the same kind of category as why. It's just that my tastes maybe have changed a bit and the content that they've put out has changed a little bit. So I mentioned last time, Love Knits, Bethany. She hasn't done massive amounts of content in the last year because I think I mentioned in that video she was expecting her second child not that long since. So she has done some content, but I've just found that I'm not as drawn to her content since the way that she, the type of content she puts out. I see the thumbnails and stuff and it's just, you know what, that's not for me anymore, and that's fine. It's obviously a lot more centred to a life with, as a mum of 2 young kids, and that's fine because there's a massive audience for that, but that's not me. So that's no problem at all. Penrose Knits I don't really watch anymore at all. I just again found I just wasn't massively interested in her content. I said this about the Crochet last year. I do actually watch her a little bit more now. I occasionally dip in and dip out, but only recently have I started doing that. When somebody designs their own patterns, I think it matters massively that you're actually interested in those patterns if that's what they're talking about all the time on the YouTube. And those 2 accounts, the Crochet and Laura Penrose, are really good examples of that, because last year I mentioned Laura Penrose I dip into and dip out of, but the Crochet I just hadn't really been super inspired by any of her designs that she put out recently, so I wasn't really watching her content. And they've kind of flipped, so a lot of the designs that the Crochet is coming out with imminently, so some stuff she's got in testing at the moment and some of the things that have recently been released, I've liked a lot. or I've been certainly more inspired by and more interested in. So I've just started in the last sort of couple of weeks dipping back into her content, whereas Laura Penrose, I'm finding the flip of, I'm just not super interested in what she's creating at the moment. And again, that's fine, because let's be honest, I am not, you're not creating for one person. If one person isn't as interested in your designs, that's fine. But that might flip and change. Jonathan Day, I don't really watch anymore. I don't know if he's putting out massive amounts of content. And I just found with Jonathan, the main thing was that it's similar to what I just said about Penrose Knits and the Crochet Bay. The kind of things that he was making just weren't things that were inspiring me. He makes a lot of Andrea Mowry patterns. He uses a lot of spin cycle yarns, and they're not really things that I'm hugely drawn to. So I just found myself moving away from that quite a lot. Woolly Mammoth fibres and high fibre knits, I just don't. Do you know what? I don't even really think I get shown notifications of their videos very much, and I've just not found myself drawn to that kind of content. And that's, again, no reflection on them. That's just my tastes have changed. And MSE Makes is similar, that she has moved more towards tutorials than podcasts, and her tutorials are fantastic. I thought the other day, about a month ago, I thought that I wanted to make like a linen stitch crochet square. I was going to try and make a crochet square, a linen stitch, and I instantly thought, I'm sure I've seen MSE Makes do a tutorial of that, so I went back and watched that. Caroline's Knits, I would still watch, but she's no longer making content, or not at the moment. I don't think she's never coming back, but she again had her first child last year, so she hasn't, that's not priority at the moment for her, is it? And Work Knits is the other one. So Lauren of Work Knits was in my top 5 last year, and I don't watch her because, again, like Caroline, she's no longer making, or she's not at the moment making content, although I know Lauren has said she's hoping to come back imminently, so I'm really hoping if she does, I will absolutely be, she'll go straight back into the top 5. And I love Lauren's back catalogue as well. I've gone back and watched some of her older videos multiple times because I just love them. So yeah, that's not really any reflection for Caroline or Lauren of their content. It's that there isn't content to watch. The other two I was going to mention are Breathing Yarn and AKA Nora Knits, both of which I occasionally dip into, particularly Breathing Yarn. I find she does some really, Isabella? I'm so sorry. I think it's Isabella. Does some really interesting different content. So she does videos where she finishes a lot of whips, and I really love that. And she also does videos of, like, how did she word it? I think it was called like knitting on a budget. I'll see if I can pop a screenshot of it up so you can see what it was. It was called like knitting on a budget, and it was like tips to really interesting, slightly different content, and I really enjoy that. She also does a lot of self-drafting and things like that. She doesn't release designs, but I find her talking about self-drafting quite interesting, because that's something that I don't do very much and I'd like to be better at. So that's quite interesting, but that's really, I sort of dip in and dip out. And similar with AK and Nora Knits, I haven't really watched her in about the last year, but that really does echo what I was saying about my preference being towards lower edited channels and content. She makes some absolutely gorgeous stuff. I love that she's quite honest about budget and stashing down and things like that, and exactly how much things have taken. But if you watch one of her videos, you will know exactly what I mean when I say her videos are really quite highly polished and highly edited, and that just isn't content that I lean towards very often. So I don't really watch her very much at all anymore. Although saying that, I just started watching her most recent video that she'd put out, but that is very much a dip into and dip out of. So that's the main things I wanted to touch on from the original list. So the channels it's changed quite a lot. If I only watch 5 of the same ones that I mentioned last time, there's a lot of new ones on here that I've never mentioned before. There's a couple that I've mentioned a few times on the actual channel because I just love them. And there's a few that I've discovered this year. And yeah, clearly my tastes have changed. I also noticed it's really interesting looking at, I've got my data and everything here in front of me, looking at the sort of subscriber numbers. There is a couple of large channels on here. There is one over 100,000 and one over 700,000. So there are 2 very large channels. But for the most part, and then there's a few around the sort of 7,000 to 10,000 mark, but actually there's quite a few here that are under 1,000 subscribers. So they're newer channels, they're smaller channels, and I really tend to like that. I don't know why, I just do. I think, again, it probably comes back to newer YouTubers maybe aren't as au fait with editing and things like that, so it comes a bit, a bit less edited. So anyway, let's go through some. So these are the channels that I sort of dip into and dip out of. I don't instantly go and straight away watch their channels, but I still really highly recommend them. Or in some cases, and I will talk about that if we do come to those cases, there are very specific types of their videos that I love. But let's run through some. So the first one I wanted to talk about is MC's Blame the Knots. So MC is MC Jablonski. She's this is a channel with around 800 subscribers, 822 subscribers as of time of filming. She is an American YouTuber, say a smaller channel, a newer channel. I think she's been active for probably about a year, something like that. She is somebody that I dip into and dip out of purely because she has she makes her own designs and she does her own hand-dyed yarn. Again, the yarn is not super accessible to me in England, but I do really like her designs. I've never knit one yet. I have a couple in my pattern library that I want to make, that I've bought and that are ready for me to make. Just, you know, free needles. It's always a problem for me. But I really like that she just sort of weekly vlogs. She challenges herself to use up skeins of yarn and things like that. And I just really like some of the designs that she comes out with. I think she's definitely a smaller designer, a newer designer, and quite an underrated one. So I like seeing what she's coming up with. She's done recently quite a lot of spinning content, and that was a bit more, you know, not so much stuff that I was interested in, although I'd like to be better at spinning. But yeah, very highly recommend checking MC out. I think she's got some lovely content and some fantastic designs that I'm hoping to be knitting in the not too distant future. A very new one to me and a new channel, but I loved her content straight away as soon as she's put it out, is Knitting Hood. So this is a lady called Teresa, a creator called Teresa. She currently has just under 600 subscribers when I'm filming. She's based in Germany. I can't remember where in Germany. That's my fault. I should have written that down. And I just, the algorithm recommended a couple of months back her video where she talked about all of the summer knits that she's made. And she's done a couple of podcasts, and I think she's just released her 3rd podcast episode, and then she's done that video as well. So she's only got a very small amount of videos so far. But I really love what she makes. She makes I think she makes quite a lot of sort of Scandi designers and things like that. And she's just finished a Frankie Genser by Sanders Garn. But she uses colours in a way that I maybe wouldn't consider otherwise, and I just like her very frank and open way of talking about her projects. I really enjoyed that video talking about all the summer knits she'd made, because she started with the ones that she'd made first in a knitting journey and showed her progression, and it was quite interesting to see there's a point at which she really starts wearing the knits that she's made, whereas the ones before just didn't quite hit right, and she's very analytical, talking through why they worked, why they didn't, stuff like that. So I really enjoyed her. Very just say down to earth, normal, really easy to get on with. Or I imagine would be really easy to get on with, and I really like the way she presents her content. So very new, but will definitely be one that I'm continuing to watch moving forwards. One that I don't know if she's previously been doing videos, but she came back to doing them, I think, in the last year. And somebody that I already, you know, follow on Instagram, have knit designs from, and absolutely love. And when she put out YouTube content, was straight away back there watching it, and that is Sophie of the Knit Purl Girl. So you will have heard me mention Sophie on the channel before, because I've test knit for Sophie repeatedly. I've made a lot of her designs. She's probably far and away the designer that I've test knit for the most. I think at this point it's maybe like 6 times I've test knit for her, and I love all of her designs that I've made. They fit really nicely. There aren't any of them that I've had issues with, except for they're now a bit too big on me because my shape has changed. So she's got just under 10,000 subscribers. She does mostly podcasts, and this is a perfect example of, she's a designer. So what she talks about on her podcasts is her own designs that she's coming out with. But because I generally love all of her designs, there are 1 or 2 that I go, not really for me, but her aesthetic and the things that she creates are things that I generally love, hence why I've tested it for her so much. I really love the content that she puts out because of that. So that is a perfect example of, you know, how a designer, if it's a designer, how the designs can influence your watching habits and things like that. But I just love Sophie's. She's got quite an honest approach, very British sense of humour. She's a British YouTuber, so a very British sense of humour. But she talks through her design process, she talks through the colours she's chosen, she talks through where she's at, making multiple samples and things like that. And I really, really enjoy it. And again, just very, not overly polished, not overly edited, just very normal, down to earth, you know, content, which is kind of the same for all of these. Another newer channel and newer to me, the algorithm recommended this channel to me, and I really, really enjoyed it, is I think you pronounce it Lutko Knits, Julia. Julia is an Australian content creator. She's only got about 500, just over 500 subscribers as of time of filming, and I just really like everything about her sounds really bad, doesn't it? Like, it sounds like I'm just being, oh God, she's so amazing. But she's got quite different content, very just, almost quite unfiltered in a way and unedited. The cat comes in and out. You can hear family moving around in the background, things like that. But she's, I get the impression at least that she's a bit younger than me. She's very bold and creative and confident with her colour choices and her pattern choices and what she chooses to do with the patterns as well. She was making a cardigan not long since out of Norro. Beautiful, beautiful yarn, and she just decided halfway through, I want this to be a cardigan, so I'm going to keep going and I'm going to steek it. There was no, almost that, and she's not a beginner knitter, but almost that beginner kind of confidence that we all have. Like my second design that I ever knit, my second sweater design that I ever knit, second sweater pattern that I ever knit was, in hindsight looking back now, a really complicated pattern. It was a contiguous construction. I think it was like a mix between a saddle shoulder and a contiguous construction. It had all over cables, it had broken rib, it had so many multiple charts. It was mental, and I just threw myself in because I was a beginner. I didn't know anything otherwise, and she almost carries that forward, and she just sort of, I want it to be this way, I'm confident I can do it this way, so I'm going to do it. And she plays with colours really, really well in a way that I wouldn't normally consider. And she knits things like, she knits a really wide variety, but there's accessories, there's garments, and she knits things like petite knit patterns and stuff, but she puts her own twist on them. She customises them, she uses colours that I maybe wouldn't have thought of going together, and I really enjoy it. It shows that I watched a video the other day from her, which was her vlog of visiting the Bendigo yarn show. I don't know what the actual name of it is, but the Bendigo woolen show, basically, I think. And normally I don't tend to like watching footage of yarn shows in countries that I'm not ever going to go to, because it's a load of brands that I can't have access to. I really enjoyed hearing her talk about what she'd got, how excited she was about them, what she was going to do with them. So yeah, that shows in sort of how her content, how she comes across on the channel, I guess, as well. Another newer one to me, which I think actually a lot of you recommended on the last channel, and that's how I've discovered her, is Memily Makes. British YouTuber, based in the south somewhere. I don't know. I feel like she's somewhere in the south. She's got about 1.9k subscribers as of time of filming. And I really like, she makes quite different things to me. She makes crochet blankets and things. I think she was doing a crochet rug. She makes knitted shawls and things, and she makes knitted gnomes as well as garments. But I just quite like her sort of, again, down to earth approach, and the fact that she knits different things than me, so I get some extra inspiration there. I was dipping in and out of her. She did Vlogmas in July, and I was dipping in and out of that. That was very real and very authentic, and I enjoyed that very much. So that was yeah, she's definitely one that's a relatively recent. You recommended it on that video last year, but I didn't pick up on that straight away. So she's more in the last couple of months, really. I've discovered her content, and I enjoy that quite a lot, actually. One which is a bit of a left field one for me. Now, there is a bit of a caveat here that you'll notice going through this, I don't tend to like podcasts or content that has more than one person on it. So a lot of you last time recommended the Grocery Girls. Not a big fan of the Grocery Girls. I have tried. I just don't find content with two people very interesting. And that goes for anybody. There's quite a lot of podcasts like that, and I don't find them engaging. The exception to that is Norfolk Girls Knitting, which is Shannon of Blue Fern Yarns, and I believe it's her mum. I've met her mum, and I'm fairly certain it's her mum. I got in my own head when I was putting stuff together. I was like, oh no, what if it's not a mum and I'm saying it's a mum and it's just a friend? I'm certain it's a mum. I'm going to trust myself. They've got around 640, 650 subscribers, and I don't know if it's because they're mother and daughter. I really like the dynamic that they've got together. It's really interesting to watch them. They make some beautiful things. I just love the way they bounce off each other. Shannon's mum is quite often there helping out at yarn shows and things like that. So I've met her a couple of times there, and yeah, they just do. They bounce off each other really well. I really like the sort of dynamic that they've got. Another one that's relatively recent to me, and that I do dip into and out of because some of her content is just not my kind of thing, is Cinema Knit Sophie. So she is a UK, she was based in Paris. She's now, I think she's just moved back to the UK, but she is a UK creator. She's from the UK originally. She's got around 12,000 subscribers. And I really like some of the content she does. So she's very, considerate of size inclusivity and things like that. And the stuff that she makes is stuff that I wouldn't normally be, just wouldn't even normally consider. So she makes a lot of things that are sort of vintage inspired. She either drafts herself or makes vintage patterns. And she's done a couple of almost like video essays talking about she talked about the 6-day star blanket and the controversy around that not that long since. And she's done some deep dives into stuff like that, and I really enjoyed those. I think it's really interesting. I don't find she's done a few pattern roundups, and I just don't tend to vibe with those so much. The stuff that she puts in there, some of them sometimes I do find inspiration, but sometimes not so much. But the video essays particularly are very interesting, and she's done some content recently of like making vlogs and things like that, and I enjoy those definitely. Next we have 3 actually that I mentioned last time that I still watch. They're maybe not as high up the list as they were before, but I very much still watch. One of them is Passioknit Kelsie that I mentioned last time. So this is one of the bigger channels. She has 730,000 subscribers, which is mad when I sit here with my 1.5k, you know. It's absolutely mad. Kelsey's content, despite the name being passionate, is actually mostly crochet. So she is an American-based content creator who has her own crochet designs and sells her own designs and items that she's made in her shop. So she does 3 videos a week, mostly vlogs and things like that, and then she does challenges. So how many balls of yarn can I use in a day? How many can I use in a month? How many scrunchies can I make in a day? And she's quite similar, I guess, to a lot of content that you tend to see in the crochet space that's like prepping for markets and things like that. But she doesn't make amigurumi, she makes garments and accessories. So she makes scrunchies, bags, bucket hats, tops, cardigans, and it is majority crochet, although she does make sort of knitted beanies and things like that as well. And I just really enjoy her content. I really like those kind of challenge videos. She does things that are like making everything trans pride, making everything bi pride, making it in the flag colours, things like that. How many scrunchies can I make in a day? How many? She's just done how many balls of yarn can I use in a month? And she does that one quite regularly to see if she's getting better. And I just find it really interesting. So I do watch her fairly regularly. I don't always watch all the content, but majority of the time, within a couple of days of her putting a release out, I will be watching it, and quite often. So she releases content Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if it's a Friday and I'm sat there and it's sort of 4 o'clock, I'm thinking, there's going to be a video coming soon. I can watch the video. So yeah, I do keep an eye on her content, definitely. And I mentioned last time as well, Laalee of Little Drops of Wonderful. I do still watch her very much. She's still in the same kind of position, actually, as she was last time. So Laalee has 2 channels. There is Little Drops of Wonderful, which is a knitting and crochet channel. And then she has This Little Wonderful Life, which is more like a lifestyle vlog. So I do watch both. Currently I tend to watch Little Drops of Wonderful more. So she has around 28.3 thousand subscribers, much a bigger channel, definitely. And particularly for crochet, if I want recommendations of crochet patterns, I will go to Laalee. She does some knitting, but she doesn't do massive amounts of knitting. She knits socks and she knits garments, but she admits herself on her podcast that she's a slow garment knitter. So she makes a lot of crochet garments, crochet blankets, crochet socks, crochet all sorts. You know, I really love watching her crochet content. And again, UK based podcaster based in the south of the UK. I really enjoy watching her channel and content. And one that has dropped down a little bit, so was in my top 5 last time, and I really don't want this to be any reflection on her content or anything, is Shai. So the only reason it's come out of the top 5 is because she's diversified a little bit in the content that she does, which is absolutely fab. It's just some of it is not what I'm looking for, or is not what I'm looking for. I'm not the market for that. So she started doing more gaming content and things like that alongside the knitting content. I think she has now split it off into a second channel. But sometimes it's just, you know, she does more. She's got subscriptions, she's got Patreon, she's got lives, or membership, sorry, not Patreon, but she's got lives and things. And lives are just something that I never really, you know, they're just not my kind of thing. I don't like live music. I mean, I like live music if I'm there in the venue. I don't like re-recorded live music. And for me, a live on YouTube kind of feels like that. I don't enjoy it so much. But she does videos where she does weekly vlogs quite often. She does videos where she's taking a week and trying to finish a load of whips. I really enjoy that content, and I go to watch those straight away. I really, really enjoy them. She's got about 7.3 thousand subscribers, which is quite nice to see, because I think when I shared her last year, she had about 5,000. So she's clearly had a good year, and I'm really happy to see that, because I've been watching Shai for a long time. The next 3 The next three are the last three on the sort of dip in and dip out list are newer to me. Two of them are very new. One of them I found sort of midway through last year. But they're not people I've recommended before, I don't think. So one of them is Cozy Books and Knits, which is Eleanor. She's got about 5,000 subscribers, and she's a newer YouTuber. So I think she's probably been going less than a year. I could be wrong there. She's, again, British, likes to show, she recently did like a weekly vlog, and she showed like just life in their cottage and the puppy and garden and all this sort of stuff, which was really nice. And I find, again, her content, I enjoy her content. It's not something that I go to straight away, but I do enjoy her content, particularly some of her sort of pattern roundups. She comes across things that I maybe wouldn't otherwise have done. And I've been enjoying that, definitely. And then the last two are Mima Makes. I've mentioned a couple of times on here before. So M of Mima Makes has around 117,000 subscribers. So again, one of the bigger channels on here. And she does, I really love her content. So she does knitting and crochet podcast. She's mostly crochet. So she's a crocheter and a crochet designer and a knitter. And she does mostly crochet content. She was the designer of the Yorkshire blanket, which I made last year, which is actually over there, just behind you. I love that pattern so much. She's got a few other patterns coming out, and she's got quite a lot already out. But she occasionally does knitting and crochet podcasts, which I really enjoy. She's done things like stash tours. She's done videos about spinning. I really, really enjoy that content. Most of her content recently, and I know, she's got married. She's got married very recently. She's had surgery this year. So unsurprising that podcasts have not been top of the list, and she struggles with health challenges as well. So content is not always or certainly the podcasts are not always on a strict schedule, which is absolutely fine. But a lot of the content recently has been tutorials and things like that, and crochet tutorials, which are not as relevant to me. I tell you what, if I wanted a crochet tutorial, I'd go straight for her, because she has loads of them. She does them right-handed and left-handed. They are very well explained and really nice and close up. So I would absolutely recommend her for crochet tutorials as well. That's just not necessarily the content that I tend to watch. But her podcasts are fab, and I've been very lucky to actually meet her in person and go and get a coffee and have a knit and chat date, I guess, with her. Met her for a knit and chat, and I really, really enjoyed that. She's just a really, really nice person. And then the last one is a newer kind of creator to me. Is I'm really sorry if I pronounce this wrong. I believe it's Knotenkopp. Johanna. Johanna is a German creator, based in the northeast of Germany. She's got just under 2,000 subscribers, and I really like her content. She's very dry, as if you know, I used to work in the German market. That is generally German sense of humour, quite dry, quite sarcastic. It's the same as British sense of humour, really. I get on with that kind of sense of humour very well. So she's very dry. She's very just to the point. She just says what she means, and I really enjoy that. She says in her YouTube description of her channel, and it made me laugh, and her videos are quite long, like mine are. This was supposed to be a short video, and I'm already at 34 minutes of filming. So I do like that I'm not the only one. But she actually says in her YouTube video description, I think the way she words it is, "This is where I talk for hours, often literally, about yarn," and it's that often literally that really made me laugh. She's very, very to the point, and I like that. Also, when I talk about putting together patterns and colour in a way that I never would considered, this is what I'm talking about. So some of the things that Johanna makes are colours that I would never combine, because I'm not very good at choosing colours quite often, I would say. Certainly not combining colours. And they look incredible. They look absolutely incredible, and I love them. She makes quite a bit of petite knit and things like that. But again, like I said with somebody earlier, I can't remember who it was, combining colours in a way that I never would consider, that just works so well. So I can very highly recommend, especially if you're looking for a long video, you just want to put something on 40 minutes to an hour and just sit and watch and enjoy. Very highly recommend Knotenkopp. They're absolutely fantastic. So now we're into the proper exciting ones. These are the top 6. Like I say, it was a top 5, but I couldn't narrow it down. And these have changed a bit since last year. These are the ones that I see a video from these people and I go and watch it, or it goes immediately on my watch later, and as soon as I'm able to, I will go back and watch it. It has changed a bit. There are 2 people on the list that were on there last year, so I'll touch on them first. And then there are 4 new channels. One of them I mentioned in the lower list last year, but has bumped up. So the two that I mentioned last year that I still watch, first off, Retro Claude. I adore Claude and Claude's content. So Claude has about 68.6k subscribers as of time of filming. Claude is a UK-based creator who has challenges with disability. I think she's got ME amongst probably other things. I think she talks at length on her channel about her disability and the challenges that comes with. She's got an energy limiting disability. She is an ambulatory wheelchair user. She previously used to make a lot of sewing content, and that's actually how I found her, because I have a sewing machine. I've tried to get into sewing. I want to do more of it. I just haven't got a lot of space, to be fair, for my sewing machine at the moment. But that's how I found her content, and I've been watching Claude probably for 3 or 4 years now. But she also makes knitting content. She makes quite a lot of vintage knitting content, vintage knitting patterns. She's done a stash busting series, which I adore. That's probably my favourite content that Claude makes. If there is a Claude stash busting video, you can bet I'm clicking on that within seconds of seeing the notification. I just love her content. I really enjoyed, she did Vlogmas last year, and I really enjoyed that, seeing her with her partner and the dog, and just their life. I loved it so much. So I cannot highly enough recommend Claude. She put out a video this morning. I watched it this morning. You know, it's been watched already. I really adore Claude's content. And I love that she talks about disability and that the tools that she's found that make it easier for her and things like that. She just, you know, she's just completely open and honest about it, and I really, really enjoy that. And the other one that I'm smiling. I'm just smiling talking about these ones, so you can tell how good they are. The other one that I wanted to mention, that's in this top 6 that was in the top last year, is Knitted by Whitney, who I am lucky to be able to consider a friend as well. So I love Whitney's content. Whitney's based in Nova Scotia in Canada, and is a plus size positive channel. It is a very size inclusive channel. That's something she really advocates for in the community, and challenges and pushes, you know, only showcases designers that are size inclusive and everything like that. And I just really love watching her content. I love watching her podcasts and seeing what she's been knitting on. That genuinely does just feel like catching up with a friend. I also love her pattern roundups. I've got so much inspiration from those pattern roundups that she does, and I can guarantee that I really like that. I know that I can guarantee that if there's a pattern that I like and it's in one of Whitney's pattern roundups, it will fit me. I will be able to find a size, and it will be size inclusive. I'll be able to find a size. Everybody else who wants to knit it will probably be able to find a size. I really love that. So yeah, again, can't highly enough recommend Whitney's content. She talks about, you know, challenges in life and balancing knitting with other commitments and work and things like that. And she was talking about she does other content of sort of other pattern roundups inspired by other YouTubers and things like that. She does some cosplay from time to time and does videos about creating things for that. She talks about books that she reads, and I've had book recommendations from there as well. I love Whitney's content. I absolutely love Whitney's content, and Whitney herself is absolutely fab. So yeah, very highly recommend. And then the next 4 are all pretty much new. So the one that I mentioned last year but was lower down the list is now very much in the top 5, and that's Laalee Bee Knits, which is Natalie. So Natalie is an Irish creator, Northern Irish, I believe. She's got just under 1,000 subscribers. She had a bit of a break. I think that's probably what pushed her down the list last time, was that she wasn't making massive amounts of content. But she is now back and pretty much every month putting out a podcast. She's a very prolific knitter, and she knits quite different things than I would knit. She knits some garments that I maybe never would have otherwise done, and I love the colours that she combines them in. She knits a lot of socks. She knits shawls. She uses quite a lot of hand-dyed yarn, and it's just beautiful. I just really, really love it. She's got the most beautiful dog called Henry. She is just, again, very authentic in her content. It just feels like almost unedited and unfiltered. It's just what you see is what you get, and you know, she'll laugh and she'll joke and she'll leave in things that are a little bit like Henry's being a bit annoying and stuff like that. I just really love her content, and she knits things that I wouldn't otherwise maybe have thought of, or things that I maybe would have not thought of because they're maybe a bit more mainstream, and she does them in a way that makes me look at it and go, yeah, okay, I can see how that would work. So yeah, I really like Natalie's content, and again, just very warm person, and that warmth comes across in the content that she creates as well. The next one I want to mention, I've mentioned a couple of times on here, is the Ruby and Purls podcast, which is my friend Leah who creates this. Now, this I always give the caveat that I'm a little bit biased because I was friends with Leah before she started creating content. But I think regardless, I would love Leah's content. What I like about Leah's content is that she is very, and I've learned this from just knowing her as a friend, she designs patterns herself, and she is a very fast, prolific knitter as well. She is not afraid to tweak things as she's going through the design process, and through the knitting process on other patterns, and she shares a lot on her channel about things that haven't worked for her, what she would do instead, how she's going to tweak it, the challenges that she's finding, and techniques and things like that. And she goes quite into depth about it, and the videos I've really loved as well. I really like her podcast, but the things that I've really loved, she's done a few videos about things like everything that I've knitted, and stuff like that, and I really love those sort of I guess similar to the video that I mentioned that Knitting Hood had done, that Teresa had done, going through with quite an analytical eye and talking about, okay, this is why I wear this is why I don't wear this is why I wear this, and learning things from that, because I'm trying to do that more with my knits as well, and I think learning from that is really interesting. But again, Leah combines, I really like that Leah really focuses on budget-friendly yarns. So she has 2 dogs, Ruby and Purl, hence the name, Ruby and Purl's podcast, who do quite often, particularly Purl, quite often make an appearance in the podcast, which I absolutely love. But because of that, she uses a lot of budget-friendly yarns, acrylic yarns, things that she can put in the washing machine. From her in recommendations, but you get the same on the podcast, you get recommendations of yarns that you maybe otherwise would have looked at, and I think sometimes we can be a bit snobbish about acrylics, but there are some really good quality ones out there, and again, based in Wales, so yarns that are accessible to me and that I can get hold of, which I absolutely love. So yeah, that I really love Leah's content, particularly for that focus on budget-friendly yarns, and really almost like, I want to say decriminalising, but that sounds a bit OTT, decriminalising budget yarns, and using acrylic to make absolutely beautiful things, and not having that sort of breaking down that slight snobbishness towards acrylics. But yeah, really, really rate Leah's content. And then the last two I'm going to talk about are my absolute favourites. They're my absolute favourites. Both of them I've discovered in the last year. One of them actually discovered from a recommendation on my last video last year. So first one I want to talk about, I have mentioned on the podcast before multiple times, because I just love her content. I've talked to Leah about this as well, actually. I know she loves her content as well, and I think there's quite a lot of you that do. And it's actually Maya who's designed this pattern. So Maya Deglon of the Maya Tinks channel I adore her content. I didn't realise, I'd seen her on Instagram, I knew she had designs out, but I didn't realise she had a YouTube channel. And when I spotted that she did and I discovered it, I just fell in love. She's got just under 1.7k subscribers. I've said before, I can't express really how joyful Maya's content is. She is not afraid to look a little bit silly on the internet, to poke fun at herself a little bit, to laugh, to just have fun with it. And I think that's important, to be able to almost like not take things too seriously. I hope that comes across in my content, because I don't cut out silly mistakes that I make. I leave my fumbles in. I talk fast. I am who I am. I pronounce things weird sometimes. I get details wrong. I speak really quick. I fumble things. I say stuff daft and I leave it in, and I have a laugh at myself. And I think it's really important to be able to do that. And I think it probably makes it a little bit more. It's me. It's what I'm like. My husband would say I'm exactly like that in real life. The number of times we just spend our time taking the mick out of each other, basically, because one of us has said something stupid and fumbled. And if you can't laugh at yourself, then life's a very miserable place. So I love that Maya just leaves the daft things in, and she's very bold in her design. She just kind of dives into it, and she's very good with construction. Incredibly size inclusive as well. All of his designs are really size inclusive, and if there's a pattern roundup that she's recommending patterns on, again, I know that they will be size inclusive, so I know I can completely trust them. Being a little bit silly, being a little bit funny, having a laugh, and just keeping that sense of humour in the content, I think is fab. And alongside that, she she really shares in depth about her design process, how she goes about it, the challenges she has with her construction. And again, I love a lot of what she puts out in terms of her designs, but there are plenty, you know, there's a couple she's done recently that just aren't my kind of vibe. And it doesn't matter, because Maya's content and the way that she puts herself across and the way that she comes across is absolutely the reason that I want to watch her content. She could probably talk about watching paint dry and I'd probably want to watch it. Perfect example being, she shares a couple of times, she shared at the end of her podcast her climbing, because she climbs. I look like somebody who can pull their own body weight up a wall? No, absolutely not. I cannot. I would also be terrified. I'm not particularly scared of heights, but I'm incredibly clumsy and I'm very aware of that. So me going up a cliff, no, that's not happening. We're not doing that. It's just literally a recipe for disaster. So I've got no interest in it, but I watch it all the way through because it's interesting to hear her talk about it. You can hear the passion in her voice for it. I'm going to stop waffling about Maya's content, but if there, do you know what? If there's any you check out from this video, all of the top lists are worth it, but I would very highly recommend Maya. Particularly if you're feeling a little bit glum one day and you just want to laugh, go and have a laugh at Maya's content. And the last one, this is the channel that made me really think I really wanted to do this video again. So this came from a recommendation from last year. And I'm so glad to whoever review it was that recommended this channel, because I instantly fell in love with this content. I've watched everything this person's put out since, and I will continue to. This is a video comes out, I'm putting it on there and then, unless I'm in a meeting at work, it's going on. And that is Made by Mumina, who I had never heard of. The algorithm had never recommended to me until one of you suggested her. So Made by Mumina is Catherine. She is a Welsh creator, but living in Mönchengladbach in Germany. And I just, I struggle to explain why I like her content. It sounds really weird. She's got about 3.6 thousand subscribers. She's just probably a bit in contrast to Maya, actually. She's much more, it sounds really bad to Maya's content. She's much more calm. She's a very calm presence. She's very she comes across very down to earth, very considered, very sort of mellow in a way. She makes some beautiful things. She test knits and she knits around. She's done a couple of self-drafted designs, actually. She knits other people's patterns. She knits a lot of designs that I never would have come across otherwise, and designers that I never had heard of until she recommended them. But she's got almost very much a sort of very natural aesthetic in a way, and I mean that in the best possible way. Yeah, she makes a lot of things that are sort of 100% wool, rustic wool, knitted and things like that. But she's just got a very sort of, I guess, a bit of cottagecore aesthetic, but not really, just sort of very rustic and down to earth, and I just love it. She's made, for example, the recent thing that I think she's probably finished now, although she hadn't in the last episode, was a Kutar top by Sarah Nordland in the most beautiful sort of chartreuse green colour, and just, things that I've bought multiple patterns because I've seen her talk about them. I've followed multiple designers because I've seen her talk about them. And just, I just love her content. I really, really enjoy it. She's done some spinning. She does, again, similar to Maya, she does spinning. Recently she's got a rigid seam. Now this is purely from her podcast. I know nothing about this stuff, so I might get this wrong, but I think she said she got a rigid heddle loom. Does that make sense? And she's been sharing weaving content. Again, no interest in weaving. No interest at all in weaving. Not bothered about weaving. Not interested in it. Don't want a loom. Don't really want to go down that rabbit hole for starters. But I just, unlike spinning where I go, okay, I want to do that, and I do have an e-spinner now. I don't have any interest in weaving and in looms. But I still love watching her content, and I watch that all the way through when she talks about weaving. I just really love her content. Again, size inclusive. I think she talks about she's got about 120 something centimetre bust. It's not always super accessible yarns for me because she's based in Germany, although she does come back to family in Wales quite often. She goes to Wonderwool and things like that, and she uses a lot of brands like Woolly Knit, which are accessible to me. But yeah, I just, super cosy, aesthetic, calming, relaxing content, but very inspirational as well. Very inspirational. A lot of stuff in there that I maybe wouldn't otherwise have considered, that I guess that's the same for all of these. The top 6 are people who very much inspire me in different ways for a lot of them, but who really inspire me, and who, yeah, I just really highly recommend all of their content. But yeah, Catherine's content is absolutely fab. To say to whoever recommended her, thank you so much, because it literally has been my favourite thing that I've discovered. That and Maya's content have been about my favourite things that I've discovered over the last year. I just absolutely love them. So yeah, they are probably my top 2 favourite. Whenever somebody says to me, have you got any recommendations, I have to think, have I already asked them, have I already told them about these 2? Because I might have done, let's be honest, I've probably waffled about them. So yeah, love Catherine's content, absolutely fabulous. So yeah, they are the channels that I went through basically most of my recent history on YouTube, which took a bit because I'd gone on a bit of a rabbit hole of mechanical keyboards. So going between all of those, trying to find the knitting content, I did get myself a mechanical keyboard. It's absolutely beautiful. If you want to hear some clacking, I can do that at some point. I shouldn't say that. I didn't get myself. My husband bought me as a present a mechanical keyboard, and it's incredible. But yeah, going through all of that content, trying to find the knitting videos that I've watched recently was quite hard, but entirely worth it. And I'm confident that the people I've listed here are the main people that I wanted to talk to you about. Certainly in that top 6 that I say that they are just drop everything and watch now. Yeah, I'm confident that I would very confidently recommend them to anybody. So I really hope you find some inspiration in there. Let me know if you watch any of these channels, or if you're going to go and try any of these channels from my recommendations. I'm really interested to hear if you like them, and I really hope you do. I think you will, particularly those top 6. Anybody that goes and subscribes to them, I love you, because I think they just need more recognition. And yeah, let me know your recommendations. Let me know your favourites down below. There may well be stuff in there that I discover that I love. Like I say, I did from this. There've been plenty that I've dipped into and out of from those recommendations, and I found Made by Moomeeno that I just absolutely adore. So yeah, honestly, worth it just for that one recommendation. So yeah, let me know who you like. Let me know what you think to these channels as well. And any that you think that I would like. I'm very, very open to recommendations. But that was all I wanted to go through with you today, guys. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, evening, weekend, whatever it is, wherever you are. And I'll catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.